Lynn, how did you first discover you were psychic?
Well, like lots of people, when I was younger, I always felt different to others around me. I suppose a little bit like looking at life from the outside in. And it just sort of changed through into my teens. And when I was in my mid-teens, there was a big change for me. I just started to become much more aware of not just my surroundings, but people in my life, people in my family. And I became aware that I was going to lose someone very close to me. And it wasn't just that in itself, it was the way that I accepted that I had to prepare myself for that, because that was just a different feeling altogether. So it was something just really strange, really different. But I had to work at preparing myself, and it was actually my father. So not something I could go and talk to him about, not something I could talk to my siblings about. And I had to deal with that myself. So when it happened several years later, I then needed to discover why I felt so much about that situation. And more importantly, why it was all about the I suppose acceptance and preparation that I went through between understanding that was going to happen and the actual loss of him. And it was through my search of him, I suppose, that I started to understand more about my own awareness, my own spiritual understanding and development. I don't think we ever stop learning, never. I think when we think we know it all, we'll be in the spirit world, and I don't intend to go there just yet.
Lynn, how old were you when you first got those messages about your dad?
About 15, 16. So quite a vulnerable age, just in between that sort of teenager that still wants to be rebellious and that adult that wants to be grown up. So it was about that age, and he didn't pass until I was in my mid-20s, but that was a few years for me to understand, with lots of changes that came from that time until he actually passed.
Were you able to share that with anyone?
Only a couple of friends that had the same understanding of difference, I suppose, spiritualism, belief that there was something other than just this physical world that we're in.
And so, Lynn, on this journey, were you able to share with people about what was going on inside your mind other than your dad?
Yes, I was. From that experience in my teens, that really started to not just open doors, but it changed a lot for me. And it made me start to wake up, I suppose, wake up to the fact that there was something else. I think a lot of people are sleepwalking in this world, and I had woken up to something different. So because I'd started to voice my opinions and my beliefs, I can be outspoken when I want to be, like it or not, that, I suppose, allowed other people to talk to me about their beliefs. And I think very much you're drawn to people in this way of belief, of work, of understanding. You're very much drawn to people that have very similar views or the same views as yourself.
And are they drawn to you? Is it through meeting them at a course, or you bump into them, or it just happens to be?
I think it's a mixture. I think some people come into your life for a reason, and that's because they need to learn from you, you need to learn from them, and that's not just necessarily from a teaching perspective. I think sometimes it's from a life perspective. Because maybe they've been through similar experiences to you. Certainly my experiences have helped when I've been talking to other people. And you also empathise with others. If you haven't got empathy and you haven't got understanding of them because of your own experiences, it's hard to relate to people. But I think some people come into your life because I don't think it's necessarily fate. I think there's a little bit of intervention somewhere, and maybe it's just meant to be.
Lynn, you mentioned before, this was about 15, you got these messages about your dad, and your dad
Sure.
passed when you were about 25. in those years leading up to your dad passing, did you start to explore further?
Yes, I did. I suppose it's strange at that age because you don't quite know where to go and what to do or how to explore it. So I started to read more. I started to go to spiritualist churches. We have lots in the UK as opposed to many other countries. We're very blessed in that respect. But still, as a teenager, it's not a subject that you want to be totally open about. So I just read more. I started to just become more aware of myself. And I think that this journey that we're all on, although it takes different paths for people, I think it is about learning to understand who you are. We all think we know ourselves. I don't think we know ourselves at all, really. But it's learning about who you are and what is your truth. What does your soul say to you? And some people don't even know where their soul is.
Where is your soul?
It's that deeper part of you that is precious. It's your truth, it's your honesty, but it's that connection that allows you to feel at a level that you can't put into words.
Lynn, often we hear about our intuition,
Yep.
A spirit messenger, a guardian angel. It goes on, and angels and higher angels. And how do you know who's talking to you?
That's an interesting one, because I think it's us here in the physical world that need a label. In the spirit world, they don't need one. I think sometimes it's a collective energy, a collective force. I think sometimes we have our own family and our own loved ones in the spirit world that are our guides, our inspirers, our helpers. But I think a lot of it is also sometimes our own intuition talking to us.
How do you know?
You have to work hard at it. And I think it's understanding how to connect with your own self and finding different ways and techniques to do that, to start to help you understand the difference between your conscious mind and your intuition. Mm-hmm.
Lynn, as a psychic, how do you get your messages?
People think that as mediums, we see the spirit world in full form and we hear every word they say, and we wish that was the case because it would make life very easy. But personally, it's almost like a mental image. If I was to say to you, what does your mum look like? What does your brother look like? Unless they're standing in front of you, you instantly have that mental picture. And it's very much an impression upon the mind, but it's also an impression upon that energy and the sense of feeling and awareness. So it will come in an image, it will come in a feeling, it will come in a picture, in a word, an emotion. And we have to then try and interpret and put it all together to make the right picture for the right jigsaw puzzle. But that's how I sense the spirit world and how very much I work.
Lynn, you mentioned the word interpret, because these messages sometimes come, they're symbolic, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Is there a book that you can just flick to and it has the answer?
No, because everybody's different. So we will all have a different interpretation. We can all look at the same colour, but we'll see it in a just slightly different shade. And that's no different to information when the spirit world work with us. That we will have a slightly different interpretation. But I think very much the spirit world work with our own references as well. If you're someone that has a reference for very unusual things, i.e. someone's passed in a very unusual manner, for argument's sake, then it will be easier for you to interpret that information from the spirit world because it's in your personal reference, it's something you understand. If it's someone that's not had that experience, it will be slightly harder, or maybe their interpretation of it will be slightly different because they haven't got the personal reference for it.
Lynn, you run many courses in the UK and around the world. With all the students that you've taught over the years, what would be the one thing they're looking for that's common?
Well, confidence is one thing, but I always say that we can't teach confidence. You can teach people to be content with who they are and comfortable with what they're doing. But I think a lot of them, initially when people first start, it's to help them understand the difference of their intuition and their mind making it up, because it does feel like you're making it up to start with. When you first sit in a development group or first go to a course, you don't understand how your intuition works, so you don't understand where your information is coming from or why you're saying something to someone. So people automatically think they're making it up. So it's about them understanding their connection with the spirit world, but ultimately their connection with themselves.
Lynn, can you give me an example of, in the early days, of trusting your intuition, something that may stand out in your mind? That was a piece of magic and I trusted it.
Oh, now you've thrown me. There's so many I can put my mind to, but there's not one that stands out as a really above all the rest. I think it was with a friend's illness, and I just had this feeling that something wasn't right, but she kept dismissing it, and I was a bit like a dog with a bone and didn't want to let her get away with it. So I did pressure her. Luckily, she listened, and she's still here to tell the tale, let's just say that.
Do you enjoy your life, Lynn?
I do. I feel very, very lucky. I've got an amazingly supportive family, because I couldn't do what I do without them. And I love what I do because it's part of who I am. And I meet some just amazing people. Get to go to some fabulous countries like Australia. And the passion here for spiritualism and for understanding psychic and mediumship work here is just breathtaking.
What is spiritualism, Lynn?
What is spiritualism? Spiritualism, I think it's different things to different people, to be honest, because everybody has their own belief system. It's like we can say, what is God? Who is God? And it's all the one and the same thing, because it's your belief, your passion. It's about understanding that there is more to just the physical life, the circle of life.
Lynn, you mention in some of your courses and writings that our loved ones have not gone forever. What does that mean?
They're just a breath away. They just are. And they haven't. I think, to me, the spirit world is home. This is just an experience. This is just a journey. And I know that the spirit world exists, and I'm just very fortunate that I can still talk to my family in the spirit world, probably a little bit more sometimes than they want to, maybe, I don't know. But I don't know how anyone could think that this is just it, because there has to be more. There has to be more. And I think we'll all have our own ideas of what the spirit world is like. The spirit world can show us certain things. They can take us on our own journey through a meditation or through a guided experience. But I think until we're there, we won't realise the full extent of the beauty of it.
Lynn, you talk about loved ones that have passed and they're in the spirit world. Do they have the right answers?
No, we want them to. We want them to answer all our questions. We want to blame them for all the things that go wrong. Why aren't they listening to us? Why aren't they answering us? But I think, as when they were here, they had to follow their path and listen to their own intuition. And as I said, many of us don't understand what that is. So we didn't have the answers here. Well, we don't necessarily have all the answers here. So it's not necessarily the case that they're going to have all the answers in the spirit world. Or they may have them, but we may not know them until we're there.
Who would have the answers?
You're going to keep going with this, aren't you? Your truth.
That's your soul.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks very much, Lynn.
Thank you very much.